Okay. Come on. Oh, got an email from YouTube telling me that I've gone live, so that's important. Got an ad from Taco Bell. And if we could just stop now, that'd be great. Okay, cool. All right. I think that we got that all dialed in. We click on that. We click on this. And I think we're all good. And here we go. All right. How you folks doing? Hope you're doing well. Good morning, if it is, morning where you are. I'm going to start off right away by just saying, if you have an idea for a topic, kind of like that's what the show is about today, if you throw the word topic, preferably in all caps, at the front of your comment, and then maybe like a colon, and then your topic, that when I go back later to go through the chat, I'll be able to spot them a little bit easier. So just keep that in mind if you can. That'd be great. Let me see here. What do we got going on? I'd like to see a topic about starting your own YouTube channel, equipment, reaching out for collabs with other people. I'm not particularly good at that. Scripting, not particularly good at that. Planning for footage, sound setup, editing, etc. Let's see here. Why am I up this early on a Sunday? Well, talking about how Australia is in the future. Gates of Antares. That's from Warlord Games, I believe. And let's see here. Hello from Newfoundland. Love to see a prescriptive video about what to buy for Rain in Hell. Honestly, nearly anything can be a demon. I'd tell you to take a look at Reaper miniatures. They have lots of demons there. I'd tell you to take a look at those WizKids models that are already pre-primed that you get at the game store that are inexpensive. Just about any D&D monster can be a demon. Like, nearly anything can be a demon. Pokemon, they can be demons, pretty sure. Let's see. Tim Albers, how you doing? Hello from Ireland, says the Wandering Celt. Or is it Celt? It's Celt. I think it's Celt. The Boston Celtics, that's mispronounced. It should be the Boston Celtics, I believe. I could be wrong. Cracking open my new copy of Rain in Hell, says Andrew Knapp. Nice to hear. Sometime tomorrow, the new expansion, which is solo and co-op play, will go live over on Wargame Vault. So that'll be cool. Let's see here. Today I'm preparing barricades and things for Kill Team 21. Nice. Morning from Arkansas, Salt Lake City, Alberta, Pittsburgh, Switzerland, Kentucky. Not Switzerland, Kentucky. Switzerland, Kentucky. They're two separate places. Topic Battletech. Good morning. Doing well, thanks. Topic Battletech. Evening from Dubai. How you doing? I used Battletech as the thumbnail for this because it was a picture I took at Gen Con. But yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit here. Let's see here. Cody from Finland. Topic Solo Wargaming. Interesting. Topic Beyond the Gates of Antares. Topic non-28mm gaming. I haven't done really much of that at all. I mean, Flames of War, I guess, is 15-ish to 20-ish, but that's about it. Topics for every other Sunday show or Friday videos? Good question. I would say probably for Friday videos is not a bad idea. Yeah. G'day from Outback, Australia. How you doing? South Ontario, Manila, Philippines. How you doing? Painting Imperial Assault Stormtroopers. Nice. Topic. Stop hating on games other people are excited about. I mean, I don't think that people should get angry and I don't know. I try not to hate on games. I know that some people did not like what I said about the new Kill Team. It was my opinion, though, about what I thought about the new Kill Team, but I don't hate it. Certainly, not even a little. Let's see here. Topic, Stargrave. Yep, Stargrave's pretty cool. I like that game a lot. Abitorlands. I don't know what Arbitorlands. I'm not sure familiar with Arbitorlands. Filthy casual play as an alternative to 40k open play. Never heard of it. What do I need to start solo skirmish games? It's a good question. Yeah. Doing collabs with people is easy. Doing collabs with big name people is probably harder. I just don't... Like, I can do collabs with Sam because he lives nearby, but I don't know a lot about doing other kind of collabs, and I haven't really done that too much. So, which is... I don't know. It's just... The trick is that in most situations, my scheduling is so tight that very frequently I am filming and editing the video for Friday the night before. So trying to get somebody else in there for that, it's unreasonable for me to ask, hey, is it possible you could drop everything and then we could quick do this collab on Thursday evening? So that's part of what it is. Let's see here. Malifaux, please. I stopped in the Malifaux booth. Well, the Weird Games booth. I stopped in the Weird Games booth at Gen Con, and I actually bought some stuff. If you're interested in seeing the stuff that I bought at Gen Con, or brought back at least, I mean, it's basically stuff that I all bought. If you go to my Twitch channel, which is here, twitch.tv/tabletop minions, and you look at the VOD, which is the recording from the video on demand. I don't know, it's a thing, they call them VODs. I don't know why they don't call them recordings, but whatever. If you look at the recording of Friday's video, the first hour and 10 minutes is me just showing the stuff that I brought back from Gen Con. So if you want to see that stuff, listen to it, put it on the background while you paint or whatever, you could do that. Go over to twitch.tv/tabletop minions and you could watch the last episode of me painting, but the first hour of it is me showing stuff that I got from Gen Con, so you can check that out. Also, if you're interested, I'll be painting again tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central, and normally Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central. Excuse me. Let's see here. Stargrave, Axe and X says, I could be a demon. You certainly could, if you believe in yourself. What else? I think I'm way behind now. JK says, true, my kids are demons. There you go. Favorite places to grab 3D files, print for gaming. That's an easy one. My Mini Factory. My Mini Factory is pretty much where I get all of my STLs. Yeah, they're great. Topic, Rain in Hell demo. As it turns out, Vince and I have filmed 2 of them. One of them, the audio is not great. It's okay, but it's not great. The other one, it's better. It's kind of a test. But yeah, we've done 2 of them. I need to edit them up. I've been traveling and such. But yes, there will be some Rain in Hell. Bat reps at least coming soon. Goblins could be demons, absolutely. Let's see here. Average Painter says, hi everyone. I had a look at Claptrap from Monster Fight Club. It's only $5 on their website, but $80 shipping. Well, that seems I wouldn't pull that trigger, frankly. Gotta love logistics these days. The model does look great, though. It is a great looking model. I don't have one within arm's reach, but I have at least one in the basement. I think I have maybe 2, but one is in the basement. And I got it at Gen Con. Yeah, it's so Monster Fight Club has gotten the license to do a Borderlands skirmish game, and I think it's going to go on Kickstarter at some point. But they had a bunch of Claptrap models that they produced themselves because they're doing their own plastics in it. Well, I was going to say in this country, but they're actually doing them in their own warehouse. It's a new kind of casting called CO casting, which is really interesting. It's something that Corvus Belli is going forward with. Some other companies are starting to go forward with. You can make really nice, very, very high detail injection molded plastic without having to inject it into a steel mold. You can inject it into a rubber mold, and it is the way things are going, at least for smaller companies. Big companies like Games Workshop probably going to still continue to make steel molds because over the long life of a product, they're probably a little bit more reasonable, or at least they don't break down as much, or this kind. But yeah, I think it's going to be a thing. BJ Morph, how you doing? Newer Osprey games, especially Silver Bayonet. I keep hearing about that, and I need to check it out. Hi from Poland. Good afternoon from a petrol-starved Isle of Wight. Yeah, I've been hearing about that going on over there. How to play Rain and Hell step by step. Elves make great demons. There you go. Solo gaming, 5 parsecs from home and 5 leagues from the Borderlands. I've got 5 parsecs from home. Well, I've got the PDF. I could see doing something maybe along those lines. It's potential. Let's see here. Prepping and basing a Warhound Titan. Oh my goodness, that's a big boy. Uncle Adam returns to the mini wargaming bunker topic. I would love to. I don't know. Is Canada allowing Americans in yet? I don't know if they are. That's kind of an issue right now. That was one of the issues that we saw at Gen Con, was that there were not a lot of folks there from other countries, that, as unlike usually, like including like all the GW people in the GW booth were all Americans. None of them were the UK folks because, from what I understand, the UK currently has a rule that if you come to America and then you want to come back, I think you have to like quarantine maybe in a hotel or something like that for like 10 days, or I don't know. There's a bunch of quarantine issues and they don't want you spreading things around, which I totally understand. So yeah, there just wasn't a lot of folks from other countries at Gen Con this year that I saw. Like the Mantic booth, like Ronnie wasn't there, Martin, all those guys. They were, yeah, it's kind of the way it works, at least right now. People in suits could be good demons. I've had several people actually mention that, that they've been working on cabals of basically beings in suits, let's say that. It's going to start messing with green stuff to fill in gaps in vehicles. I would watch you do that, take some tips. It's 2 colors, bubblegum kind. I think army painter. It's not liquid. Sure. I've been using this stuff called Bondic lately instead that I like quite a bit. Let's see here. Irony of ironies, my dry Riser Rust has dried out. Crisis. You know, those GW dry paints are... yeah, I've never had good luck with them. Let's just say that. Let's see here. Topic, Stargrave. Yeah, I like Stargrave as well, and I'm looking forward to... I'm working on a warband of Stargrave right now. Or crew is what they're called, technically. And then I'm going to start working on a second one eventually. Topic, one-page rules. I've been looking more and more into one-page rules, and I initially had kind of discounted not the 40k version of it, but like the equivalent to like kind of Kill Team, which I think is called Grimdark Firefight, if I remember correctly, because I thought that you still had to move your models in coherency and in squads, and because there was a diagram that showed this is how you do it. But it turns out, as I went back and looked at it, maybe not years later, but a good time later, there are rules for moving in squads, but it's only very specific model types that have to move in squads. Most models are moving in onesies, you know, like a not a onesie, but you know what I'm saying. They move one at a time, like skirmish games are meant to be, according to me. I played a skirmish game. I did a demo of a skirmish game at Gen Con that, in my mind, wasn't a skirmish game because you were still moving, like predominantly all the units were moving in groups, like, let's say, Age of Sigmar, right? Which, yeah, I thought that was interesting. Because it's like, oh, it's our skirmish game. And I'm like, this doesn't seem skirmishy because you really can't move anybody individually. That's kind of a big thing about skirmish, in my opinion. Let me see here. I got my PDF copy of Rain and Hell a couple weeks ago and started going through the rules. Got the print copy Friday. Awesome stuff. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Good evening from Macau. How you doing, Ken? Painting Orc Flash Gets for 40k. Nice. Somehow the stream loaded with closed captioning on and the auto CC on the live stream comes out kind of hilarious. It generally kind of does, yeah. Just finished smashing out a big batch of dry brushing. 2 Armada fleets, 2 Battletech lances, and some rubble piles for Dead Zone. Nice. Dry brushing is the way. Good morning from Toledo, watching along and finishing up my Blood Bowl team for upcoming Fall League. Nice. How to actually get games on the table. I pick up books and do the hobby work, but rarely if ever get them on the table. Forbidden Psalm and Rain and Hell sitting unplayed. I mean, a lot of times it is a situation of trying to actually get the time and bring people together, or even a person together with you to play. Like if you've, let's say, built and painted 2 forces for a small skirmish game, like Rain and Hell, or like Forbidden Psalm, or, you know, whatever. and you've got the terrain, you've got everything, then that person can just come over, you can teach them the rules, they can play, and you don't have to worry about it. That's the easier way to do it if you can. Again, getting people's schedules to line up and all that stuff, that's also difficult. But the big deal is if you're like, I'm going to build my force and then expect my friend who maybe doesn't play that much or whatever to also build their force and paint it, you may be waiting on them. So if you're trying to get games, that's one of the reasons why I love skirmish games, is I can do both parts, and then you can just come over and play, and then that's fine. And then maybe, hopefully, eventually you'll be like, I'm really interested in making my own force, and then hopefully you'll do that. But even if you're like in progress, your opponent is in progress of like, well, I've been working on my force, but then, there was TV and I saw a squirrel outside or whatever the deal is, fine. But then you still have two forces so you guys can still play, and hopefully you can keep their interest level up until they actually finish, and then they can bring their force over, and then you can play, and that's a thing. I would like to play Forbidden Psalm too. I have not yet built any models for it. I think that I may have enough fantasy stuff that I could probably use some... That's the thing about model agnostic games, is that very frequently you just go back through your collection and go, well, this guy will work well for this, and this one will work well for that, and that's fun. But you can also then decide, well, I'm going to build a whole new force, and that's cool too. Follow up the not hating on games video with a video about the best games to hate. That seems like the wrong way to go about it. Let's see here. Life after 40K and Age of Sigmar, can't stay anniversary with the wife. Well, have a good time, DJ Todd P. Harris. Happy anniversary. Let's see here. Conflict 57. Is that a new game? I know of Conflict 47. I've never heard of Conflict 57. Is that maybe that's a new thing? The best small publisher rulebook released in 2021. That would be a tough one. I don't know. I could see doing a video about small publishers that were released in 2021. Maybe I could see that. Working on my Kill Team Kriganistas, something like that. Using some Blackstone Fortress troopers to fill in the gaps you mentioned a while ago in the Octarius box to get my team up to 14. Nice. Conflict 47, I meant. Well, that makes sense. Because Conflict 57 could be could be another game. But 47, that makes more sense. Yeah. Doing color theme using color triads. Ooh. I actually got a bunch of color triads recently because Army Painter sent me their big box of new airbrush colors. And they're all done in triads. So if you don't know what a triad is, let's say you have a color like skeleton bone, then they will also sell you a light color of skeleton bone, which they call skeleton bone light or highlight, and then they'll also sell you skeleton bone, and they'll call it like shade or something like that. And it's basically the same color as the middle color, it's just there's a lighter version and a darker version, which many people will blend, and they'll just be on the wet palette and going, I'm going to add some color to this to make it darker or lighter or whatever. But when you're doing airbrushing, it's a pain in the butt to blend colors together because you got to mix it together in a little cup, and it's just a pain in the butt. So I think it's very smart of them to be like, look, we made these colors that are in triads so that if you want to really get into some interesting shading with your airbrush stuff, you now have all of these triads to go through, which is, I think, cool. It's a smart plan, in my opinion. So... But Reaper's always been into triads, too. They're big into that. Color triads. Let's see. Glad to have time to be here. Absolutely, Wild Dice Roller. When I say stop hating on games, I'm meaning I bought a game the other day and got a 5-minute rant about how that game was dying. No game ever dies, really. As long as you can find a copy of it, you can keep it alive. You and your friends, or you and anybody you trick into playing with you. There seems to be a lot of belief in the industry these days that if you don't constantly release add-ons or new product for a game, that it's dead. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this game came out and they've not released anything more for it, and it's dead. It's not dead. You know what I mean? That's just that's marketing talking, is what that is right there. They're like, well, if you think the game's not dead, then you better keep buying the stuff that we put out for it, which, I don't know. Now, I say this as a person who's just about to release an expansion for Reign in Hell. Here's the reason why we're doing the expansion for Reign in Hell. We got a lot of people asking us to make solo rules / co-op rules for Reign in Hell. So that's why we're doing it. And it's going to be pay what you want. So you'll be able to go to... Wargame Vault, where we sell the previous game, and you'll be able to get it for free if you want to, or if you want to give us a little bit of money, whatever you want to do, you can get it that way. And it won't be a print version. It'll be PDF only because it's a lot shorter. I think currently it's like, I don't know, it's 23 pages or something like that. So, and it's six. It's 6 scenarios that you play in order, and it tells a story. You don't just like roll a dice and say, "Oh, we'll play number 5." No, you play number 1, and then number 2, and number 3, and you try to get through all the way through 6. That's kind of the trick. So yeah, in the future, I don't know if we'll do expansions on games. Like I said, the reason we're doing this one is just because people asked us about solo play and co-op. I can tell you right now, our next game that we're producing, which is going to be a totally different game from Rain and Hell, is going to have solo and co-op built in, like right from the get. So very possibly we may not need to do an expansion. We may do some sort of expansion that adds more scenarios maybe, or something like that. I don't know. But right now, I'm not a big fan of like you have to constantly keep producing things for this game or the game is dead. We're of the mind we're just going to try to produce a different game every year. And if you find our first game 6 years from now and sit down and start playing with your friends, it's obviously not dead. You know what I mean? So that's my personal opinion. I think a big portion of that too is the fact that in many situations the miniatures are tied to the game. If they stop making miniatures for the game and you have a hard time finding the miniatures for the game, then it's hard to play the game. But if you make a rule set that can use whatever miniatures you want, you use whatever miniatures you want, and the rule set should be always basically playable, right? So anyway, there's my diatribe. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Let's see here. How do things and skills you learn in the hobby gaming help you in other parts of your life? Actually, we talked a little bit about that in the Game 4 podcast. Me and Game 4 Matt, we chatted about that sometime last year, I think. About basically taking skills from tabletop gaming, like analytical skills, stuff that you'll maybe learn in role-playing games, things like that, and how to use those in your normal life, in business, whatever, your job, that kind of stuff. Oh my goodness. Everything just scrolled a whole bunch. Let's see here. Can mechs be demons? I mean, I think so. You might want to paint them a little different, but yeah. My goodness, I'm way behind. I apologize here, folks. Been working on my portfolio and I have a heck of a lot of 6mm vehicles and mechs in it. Well, that's cool. Topic. Average painter attempts to follow a pro painter's advice techniques and tells other average painters how he found it and what he learned. That's not a bad idea, honestly, yeah. Yeah. I have kicked around the idea of trying to see if I can teach myself how to display paint. I think that I probably might not be able to. I mean, not quickly. It's not a quick thing. Just like being like, I'm going to quickly learn how to play the piano. It takes time. But still, that's an interesting idea. Will 40K dominate the common areas of nursing homes in the future? I think it'll be video games, frankly, because then you can just stay in your room and play, and they'll just set up a LAN and you'll be able to play and pwn your neighbors, as they say. Hey, you're right. Why is the closed captioning on mine, too? That's weird. I just noticed that. Now I lost my window. Here we go. There we go. Here we go. There we go. Gotcha. Have you started using your resin printer yet? I have unfortunately not. No, traveling and this and that and everything else and trying to get the expansion done. I'm hoping to do that soon, but it is still sitting, and it is actually there's a cat that's sitting on it very frequently. But so she's going to be sad when I eventually take it and deploy it, because then she'll be like, "Hey, but I like that box." Things to do to make your paint room more livable. That's not a bad idea. Let's see here. Have you had a look at Heavy Gear Blitz years and years and years ago? But I haven't seen if they've got any really new rules, but I did play it at a convention, I don't know, 5 years ago or something like that. I use Mantic Succubi as Elven line breakers for Oathmark, so that's the opposite. It's still good. I think it works, but yeah. I think my Claptrap got delivered yesterday. Nice. Heavy Gear Blitz is a wicked game. It ought to be way more popular. The miniatures aren't for beginners, though. Yeah, I have noticed that, I think. Let's see here. Here's a topic. Oh, and again, I'll just reiterate. If you've got an idea for a topic and you just kind of tuned in, if you could put the word topic, preferably like in all caps at the beginning. Then when I go back and scroll through these comments later on and make a list, it'll be easier for them to spot. How 3D printing is not killing GW. I print and there's an enormous amount of effort involved, add in your time, and it's not cheaper at all. Yeah, no, I don't think that. I mean, personally, I don't think that the GW has to worry particularly about 3D printing. Someone actually asked that. I went to the preview. I went to the Friday night preview at Gen Con where they showed off some stuff for GW. Corn Blood Bowl team, and they showed off the new Kill Team box, which had already been leaked, and anyway. But someone asked during the Q&A about 3D printing and if they were concerned about it or whatever, and they were basically like, no, I mean, we have no problem with 3D printing. We 3D print stuff ourselves, I mean, which is true. Like, that's how they test out their models and stuff like that. Like, I'm interested in 3D printing because I don't want to 3D print GW stuff. I want to 3D print other cool stuff that's like from tiny little manufacturers and sculptors that you wouldn't normally find. Will this cause me to buy less Games Workshop stuff? Very probably. Not completely. I mean, like, I guess if Games Workshop was the only company to make models, then 3D printing would really hurt them, because then there would be another place to buy models. But that's not the case anyway. Like, there's lots of places you can buy models. There's just now, with 3D printing, even more, except that you're not having to go buy them particularly. You buy the materials, you buy the STLs, and it's fine. But yeah, I don't see GW worrying a ton about the 3D printing, frankly. Borderlands Skirmish game, I'm in. Been making Borderlands terrain for the last year. Yeah, Monster Fight Club is gonna. I think they'll do a Kickstarter on it probably. And they also did a skirmish game for Cyberpunk Red, which is a RPG based off. It's RPG from Artalasaurian, and so they worked with Artalasaurian and made a skirmish game. And so I bought a bunch of the models for those actually at Gen Con as well, which are very cool. I did not buy the game, but I don't think they were selling it yet. I don't know that the actual game has been Kickstarted, but they had the models available for the people to buy at the Gen Con, which was pretty cool. Greetings from Central Finland. Currently painting first ever Space Marines. Tons of edge highlighting if you want to go that road. That's true. I generally do more dry brush than edge highlight, but I do edge highlight stuff here and there. Metal molds also need to be hot so the plastic flows. Yeah, and that's the thing that's so interesting with this new CO casting, like this Claptrap and these other models I'm talking about from Monster Fight Club, and like I said, Corvus Belly is starting to use it too, is that the plastic is still about as warm, because I asked him, I'm like, is it a lower temperature plastic? Because you're firing hot plastic into a rubber mold, which I kind of was like, he's like, no, he's a slightly cooler, but not by a lot. And like I said, if you get the chance, go look at the Twitch from Friday, because it's amazing. And I think this new process, this SIO casting, SIO casting, there's information about it out there on the internet. I think you're going to start seeing a lot of like mid-sized to small companies starting to do a lot of work with that, because then they can make plastic miniatures with really high detail and for cheap, because a steel mold for injection molded plastic costs on the low end maybe like $5,000, maybe $4,000, and then they can go up depending on the size and the complexity of the mold up to like $50,000. John from Monster Fight Club was telling me that when they make a mold, it costs them $300. So, and it's really high detail because you're taking it from a master that you're actually pouring fluid over, and then it gets exactly as much detail as you would have from just seeing the master, which is interesting. How to enjoy / get into a game with great mechanics but ugly models. Like, I don't like the look or idea of Battletech, but it's super fun. But if it's super fun to play, I'd try. I mean, you can do a lot of different things, I suppose. You can do, I don't know, just start using different models if you like the mechanics. That's what I would do. But yeah, that's a good question. Coming back to rebuilding game nights after a pandemic. It's also a good question, yeah. Blood and Plunder Skirmish game also has single-player options with an AI. Nice. Topic, DIY games, i.e. Gaslands, Song of Blades and Heroes, Frostgrave for budget gaming and getting new players in the hobby. It's a good idea, yep. Hello from Germany. Although not part of any diaspora, I am currently prepping some Battletech minis. My friends want to revive our 90s past. Well, that's cool. Fortunately, you can't fly out of Australia until after Christmas. Yeah. Also had a fantastic first game of Rain in Hell yesterday. Fantastic game. Simple, fast, and challenging all at the same time. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Greetings from Illinois. How you doing? Gaming Clubs 101. I would love to hear more about managing one, club rules, and things that could go wrong. Yeah, I could see that. That's a good idea. Thoughts on Stargrave? Is that a topic, or you're just asking now? I like Stargrave. I liked Frostgrave as well, though, so that's, a thing. I'm actually currently working on my first crew for Stargrave. I'm also working on terrain for Stargrave. I don't know if I'll make battle reports on Stargrave. I might. On the other hand, I might just play Stargrave because it's fun. So there's that, too. I did just recently somewhere... Oh. Whoops. This is the first expansion for Stargrave, which is called Quarantine 37, and it's basically got a lot of space zombies and junk like that in it. So I've got that, and I'm looking forward to being able to try that out eventually as well. Late joining, but good morning. That almost rhymes. It's pretty cool. Thank you. Making coffee. Going to use my new D&D D12 shaped coffee mug. Nice. Can any of the Battletech heads in here compare Alpha Strike to Gamma Wolves? That's a good question. Being a hobby hero, aka running a campaign, things that work don't, etc. Starting a group at an LGS. We have a crusade going at ours, but the guy running it is terrible. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting concept as well, definitely. I mean, I kind of talk a little bit about that in a video I did about being a gaming advocate, but I think that information, is at this... I mean, the information is not old, the video's old, but it could be tightened up and a little bit more sharpened, perhaps. Not just the video, but the information. Painting smaller scale miniatures like 15 millimeter. Smaller brushes. I don't actually know if that's true, really. Skirmish can have units. I mean, yes, technically anything's possible, but in my mind, it's... I don't know what makes it Skirmish then if you're just doing... Like, Age of Sigmar is not a Skirmish game, in my opinion. And I don't know, at least in my opinion, that Skirmish is just number of models. For me, you need to have... I think that the majority of the models should be able to move independently and not have to stay near each other. If you're having to move things in squads a lot, then in my mind that becomes more of an army game. That's my personal preference. Just bought my first airbrush, got a cheap one, but still terrified. Do not be terrified of your airbrush. It is a fun tool that will help you with your painting. Start out by just priming. I mean, honestly, just starting to fire just straight primer through your airbrush and not be like, oh, I need to blend my shades and my highlight. No, just prime stuff. Just put primer in it. Get yourself some airbrush primer, put it in there, and prime models. And then you don't have to go outside and possibly get rained on, or it's too humid, or it's too cold, or it's too hot, or whatever. You can just sit there and work. And you do that for a while and you'll get used to it. Just clean it out when you're done. I have a tendency to keep, not everything, but the majority of the airbrush, I have a tendency to keep it in water. So the main body of the airbrush, that's a piece that I keep in water, and then the nozzles on the front. Everything else, the needle, the internal stuff, that stuff doesn't need to stay in water because it doesn't really get paint on it. I mean, the needle does. You wipe off the needle. It's very easy to clean the needle. But the other parts, you clean them a little bit, with spray and cleaner through it and all that kind of stuff. And you take the whole thing apart. You just put those parts in water and let them sit. And they will... You generally won't get clogs because the paint will never get dry if there's any paint left in there, so you don't get clogs. It's worked for me for... nearly a decade on this airbrush. So, well, technically 2 airbrushes now, so yeah. Greetings from rainy Escanaba. Yeah, it was sort of bright before, but it's gotten darker here. We're south of you quite a bit, but yeah. Long-time listener, first-time live viewer. Hello from New England. Well, how you doing, Charles? Playtesting homebrew wargame rules. That'd be a not bad topic, yep. I'd like to adapt the one-page rules and apply them to an Epic or War Master scale game. I'm a little surprised they haven't done something like that. There might be somebody in the community, actually, for one-page rules that's already done something like that. You might want to check their Discord, because there might be somebody who's done that kind of thing. Working on basing my Malifaux stuff today, because when I originally painted most of these, I left the bases empty because I was a dumb kid. Well, I like basing, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. I just think I personally like the look of it, so definitely. Good morning from Levittstown, Pennsylvania. Painting Reaper's Tiki Golem for fun. Well, that's fun. That's how fun works. Let's see here. Lots of craziness in the Warhammer community in the last 24 hours. YouTubers have Twitter wars, creepy conversations, and not taking hints, doxing, Twitter bans. I haven't seen any of that, but then again, I don't really read Twitter a ton, and it makes me happier, frankly. Let's see here. Forbidden Psalm has been some of Ash's funnest bat reps. Yeah, no, I do. I've been liking those bat reps as well. Wow, man, I'm really far behind here. Let's see here. Conflict 57, Korean War. It could be that, yeah. Thoughts on one-page rules? Yep, definitely thinking about doing more of that. How about a retrospective on Warhammer Fantasy or the older 40k editions? I never really played any of Warhammer Fantasy. I played the oldest 40k that I played was 5th edition. That's when I started playing 40k. So I don't know that I'd be great for that. Color Triad sounds like a miniature painting gang. True. Very good. Can you talk about the difference between infantry techniques and big vehicles like tanks or aircraft? I paint 40k. I thought you meant strategy. I'm like, I'm not your strategy guy, but painting, I get you. I paint 40k, but I haven't taken on a Rhino or Storm Raven, only Nurgled vehicles or dreads. Frankly, it's not a bad idea, but it's generally vehicles. It's better to spray if you can. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. But yeah, it's really hard to paint vehicles, especially with big flat surfaces on them, with a brush. So spray, whether it's rattle can or airbrush or something like that, is generally the better plan there. Case in point, the bizarre longevity of the Inquisitor community. I was explaining to my wife recently, because I was flipping through, we were sitting next to each other someplace, and I was flipping through my phone, and I showed her this cool model, and it was a Turnip 28 model. And she's like, is it for a game? And then I had to explain what Turnip 28 was. And then, of course, to make that make sense, I had to, but I'm keeping it short, because I'm not, like, going to give her a 3-hour, documentary about it, because, so I'm trying to keep it short, but then for a little bit of context, I also had to explain Inquisition 28, which is also a movement within miniatures. If you just type in Inquisition or INQ28 into your Instagram, Twitter, even regular old Google, you'll find interesting stuff. People making really kind of cool, interesting, kind of grimdark, kit-bashy models. Turnip is the same thing, only more kind of fantasy. It's a lot of mixing, like almost like Napoleonic with like fantasy stuff, and it's kind of squishing it together. Except everyone's also seems to have plants growing out of them for some reason. I don't know why that is. I haven't looked into that too much. Anyway, so Inquisition, the original Inquisition game from the early 2000s, was a skirmish game that GW put out that used 54mm models, so they were considerably larger than everything else, and it probably failed because of that size, because now you got to build all new terrain, and but people have liked trying to play that game with 28mm models, which is where the Inquisition 28 thing kind of sort of started from. And now, like I said, it's just become a movement of like, I like to kit bash and make these crazy looking creatures and people and whatever. And yeah, it's a whole thing. Let's see here. Game's not dead when they don't release new stuff for it. It's just stopped growing. Sure. What do you think about the leaked NDA from GW? Not trying to create a poop storm, just curious about your opinion. If it's true, I mean, then you have to make a choice about which way you want to go. I think that people are if it's true, I think people are overestimating what that line means about, like, a lot of people are saying, oh, that means I can't ever review and say anything is bad. And I don't think that's what that line means. I'm not a lawyer, but I think it means you can't, like, slander the company and say, oh, they're all liars and cheats or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, which makes sense. That's what slander laws are about. But I didn't look at it super closely. Again, I don't pay super close attention to Twitter, at least not GW. Or I don't follow a ton of people who are into miniatures on Twitter. Honestly, lately, I've been following a lot of people who are into drawing. I like seeing really super cool, interesting stuff like that. Partially because I'm always on the lookout for people to do artwork for our games. So I'm constantly like, if I see like a cool drawing that somebody else shared, I'm like, oh, that person, I should follow them just in case. But yeah, I don't usually cotton to all that stuff too much. I think we'll see range combat extension for Rain in Hell, such as spellcaster or archer goop projectiles. Not probably no. The game was designed to be close, brutal, fast, in your face, hand-to-hand combat. That's kind of the way it works. The next game that we do is going to be sci-fi based, and there will be range weapons and things like that in there. That'll be a thing. Let's see here. Hey Zambies, how you doing? Oh, everything scrolled again. Goodness gracious. I'm missing a bunch of stuff, I'm pretty sure. Any con swag? If you want to see the stuff that I brought back from Gen Con, go check out my Twitter channel, which is Twitch. Twitch.tv/Tabletop Minions. If you look at Friday's video on demand, aka the recording from Friday, the first hour of it pretty much is me showing the stuff that I brought back from Gen Con. I would show some of it here, but literally it's all in the basement. So yeah, I can't do that. Warlord Games and Battlefront both have been using SEOcast for quite some time. Yeah, it's very cool. I had no idea about the technology, and I'm super excited about it. And are we talking casting? The soft plastic stuff from CMON is all right. Just I really felt like the quality is far higher than that. At least if you, again, if you go back, and I don't have it anywhere near here, but if you go back, if you get a chance, take a look at the Twitch rerun, whatever, VOD from Friday. I do a lot of close-ups of that Claptrap model and some of the other models that I got also from Monster Fight Club, and the detail is really, really, really nice. Claptrap's got these little skinny robot arms that are a little bendy, but, I mean, they're really skinny, you know what I mean? So the plastic itself is maybe just a touch softer than, say, GW stuff, but it's nowhere near like WizKids or HeroClix. Like, those are rubber, basically. Yeah, I'm pretty impressed with it. Best bang for your buck with the person with no space. That's a good idea. So the new casting, sort of like silicone molds for resin casting and injection molding, had a baby. A little bit. I mean, you're injection molding thermoplastic into the way it was explained to me, RTV molds, which is like vulcanized rubber. It's the same type of molds for the most part that you use for casting metal, metal like pewter miniatures, or resin generally. It's the same type of RTV rubber is what they call it. We had a whole game club filled and playing today. So much fun after 15 years of not seeing anyone. Yeah, that's good to hear. Let's see. I want to collect Skaven, but there's so much metal in the range. Yeah, there is still a decent amount. Well, if you're lucky, honestly, because some of those metal models, if they're still making them, they're making them out of resin, and their resin is better, but not a lot. Anyway. Let's see here. Could Stargrave do Shadowrun gaming? I don't know. Was there ever a Shadowrun minigame? There was like a Shadowrun. WizKids made a Shadowrun figures that were sort of a minigame, but not really. They were real big though. They were seriously like almost like action figures. They came on a base, and then yeah, they were kind of crazy. Adapting rule sets / settings / models to fit your custom narratives. I feel like people in tabletop role-playing games are more comfortable changing rules to fit custom-themed campaigns than wargamers. I think that's true as well. That's a good point. Is your next game going to be another agnostic game? I love that Rain in Hell it was so that I can play dual purpose for my 40k and Sigmar models. Oh yeah, absolutely. At some point down the road, potentially, I could see us producing maybe some STL files if people wanted them and if we could find a sculptor. But I don't even know if it would be for the miniatures. It might be for like objective markers or for maybe like special types of terrain you might want in the game or something like that. I don't know. I don't see us ever producing a line of miniatures because everybody else does, so why would we need to? You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole concept behind miniatures agnostic games, is it allows you to use the models you may already have. Especially our next game is going to definitely be something that allows you to use the models you may already have. But it also might just be like, I always wanted to build these models, but I didn't want to play that game, but now I can get some of them and use them for, you know, this game, and that's the thing that I'm most interested in. That's why I'm really enjoying Space Weirdos, Planet 28, looking forward to Forbidden Psalm, even Stargrave. Like, some of my Stargrave miniatures are actual Stargrave miniatures from the company that they partner with, North Star. But some of them are also just like modified, all kinds of stuff, and some of them are going to be 3D printed, and there's just a lot of different things I'm putting into that. Airbrushing is a fun journey. I agree. Let's see here. I'm terrified of my airbrush, locked it in a chest, and dumped it in the ocean. It was the only way. Well, that may have been a touch overboard, you know. Well, overboard because you dumped it in the ocean, but yeah. Priming, then try zenithal priming. After that, you should have enough skills to be able to do most base coats. I don't really do super fancy stuff with my airbrush. I still basically prime, zenithal prime, base coats, maybe a highlight, but I'm not like painting eyes or doing like specific panels and doing blends on I'm generally like, it's the preliminary stuff, and then I take that stuff back to the hobby table and I start using a brush on it. And that's what I generally do, and I've been doing it for a long time. But it still helps a bunch, speeds things up, all that stuff. You don't paint the model from soup to nuts with your airbrush. You do the preliminary stuff with it and then go and do it the regular way, you know, with your brushes, generally. Every once in a while, and I haven't done it in a long while, I will do some airbrushing when everything's almost done. But it's really literally only if I'm trying to get fancy with like a power weapon, and sometimes it's a pain in the butt. But it is faster, for me at least, than trying to wet blend a power weapon. I am still not good at that, and I took a class from Sam about how to do that at Adapticon a number of years back. But yeah, I would prefer still to do it with an airbrush. How to write your own war game. Simple tips and mistakes to avoid. Well, yeah. Video demonstration of cleaning airbrush. Yeah, I do want to do some more airbrush videos, that is for sure, and it's part of the reason why I bought this little camera over here, which I was going to take to Gen Con but decided not to. This is a Sony ZV-1, and I've got like a little arm that I can attach to the wall so I can have it pointing towards like me, so while I'm talking we can cut back and forth between me talking, and then a fancier camera that'll be showing the actual airbrush and what I'm doing that'll be hanging from the ceiling. So yeah, I do want to go down that road. It is just currently trying to find the time, but I do want to do newer, updated airbrush videos. One Page Rules is likely starting an epic scale mini Patreon, so I expect that there isn't any rules already. There will be an adaptation soon. Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like something they would do. Hey, from Columbus? How you doing, Andrew? I like to go online to read about the hobby. I can admit I don't consider the drama part of it. Yeah, that's important. Listing of your preferred tools and paints. I do, and I was talking about this a little bit, was it yesterday during the Patreon chat? I think it might have been. Or maybe it was on Friday. It's been a blur, frankly. Anyway, I am kicking around the idea. I want to do a new kind of series or whatever, a new show once in a while on the channel, and I'm thinking about calling it Why I Like It, and or something like that. I've got it written down, well, in my phone. But instead of being like a review where I'm just going to tell you about things that I like, rather than saying, well, I don't like this thing, or this thing's okay. If I find something I really like, then I will share it with folks, and I want to make a video about it. And so I'm thinking about doing something like that, frankly. Could be games, could be tools, could be paints, could be a lot of different things. Gesundheit, I appreciate that. Unit Builder you can get from One Page Rules. Patreon is very fun to play with. I'm using it to recreate my 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battles Undead Army. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I need to probably sign up for their Patreon because I want to use the army builder, because they've got so one-page rules. They have a lot of pre-made army stats. So if you're like playing not actually Tau, you can take your Tau models and then use these not actually Tau rules for them, and it's relatively easy to go, well, this is a Pathfinder and they call it this, and this is a such and they call it that, and then they already have stats and everything ready to go for you, which is fine. But if you're like, I want to use one-page rules as the engine to run my own weird, strange game, then you have to do the Patreon so that you can get the like unit builder, so you can say, you know, this thing I want it to be statted out like this, and then it will tell you how many points that is and stuff like that. Now, you could certainly just pour through all of the current army lists and then find like maybe a Tyrannid that's pretty close and then go, okay, well, that's actually this big scary robot, and just sort of tweak things a little bit. You could do that too, certainly. But the Patreon thing helps support them, and that's pretty cool. So, what about trimming and cutting both for getting models out of the sprues and the remnants of the nubs that might be left in the model? Yeah, I could see maybe making a video about that. Or making a video just about, like, just how to clean your models to begin with, you know, before painting. Prepping models for painting, something like that. Let's see here. Inquisitor was the closest thing to the original Rogue Trader that they have ever done. It was an interesting concept. I own a copy of it. I actually found it not that long ago at a game shop. Like, they still just had a copy of it. Like, it wasn't used. It had just been sitting on the shelf since the early 2000s. And I was just like, the heck is this doing? I bought it at, like, regular, like retail price. It was crazy. What else here? You mentioned hanging out with Lincoln from BGG at Gen Con. You doing anything with BGG or, say, BGG Con in November? I've been friends with Lincoln for a while. He's, when I first met him, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, something like that. He had been watching the channel and was a fan of the channel, and so we would just start talking at conventions when we would bump into each other. And now we text back and forth, and we sometimes have Skype calls because he's in California and I'm here in Wisconsin. And we get together at shows, like just before everything went all to hell. We were at the Reno trade show in 2020, like early part of 2020, like March, like just before. And we went to dinner and just hung out a bunch, and it was nice. So it was good to see him at Gen Con this year. We hadn't seen each other in the flesh for a while. I've done a bunch of stuff with them back in the beginning parts of the pandemic, where there was a lot of virtual conventions, and then they would have me, they would be running some virtual convention stuff for, let's say, San Diego Comic-Con, or, they did their own virtual convention, partnered with the folks from Dice Tower, stuff like that, and so they would have me on for like 3 hours, and I would show you how to paint board game minis and stuff like that. I am working on a series of videos with them that'll go on their channel about how to paint your board game minis, and it's just, unfortunately, it's been a lot of treading water recently, so that's been something that's kind of fallen by the wayside. But we talked a little bit more about that, actually. We had dinner at a Japanese place during Gen Con, right kind of by where the food trucks and stuff are. There's a restaurant with blue awnings over there. We had to wait for a while, but it was still very good. I've been there before. So anyway, yeah. No, Lincoln's a great guy, and I'm Aldi as well. Scott, I've not hung out with him as much, but he's also a super nice guy. So I like the BGG folks quite a bit. I was on a couple of their live streams too, back at Origins, I think 2019, and that was fun too. I like bulldozers for some crazy reason. Cool. Are there any ship battle games? I know about Kings of War Armada, but nothing more. I mean, if you're looking for boats, there's a game called Age of Glory, which is by the same folks that make Wings of Glory, which are the little pre-painted airplanes. Age of Glory, I believe it's called, is like little pre-painted boats, so that's kind of cool if you're into that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for spaceships themes, there's lots of games like... probably one of the most recent ones is probably called A Billion Suns, which is from Osprey. You might look into that. Lighting your hobby area. I think I did a video about that, actually. Good morning from upstate New York, excuse me. Love the idea of a positive what I like video. That's something I always like about your videos. Don't yuck anyone's yums. Yeah, no, I don't see the reason for doing that. Let's see. Thank you for turning me into Monument Hobbies, by the way. I love their paint, and their synthetic brushes completely changed my painting without making me broke. Well, nice. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of their stuff as well. They are my favorite opaque paint. I use some others as well, but I do generally default to their stuff. And their brushes are super dope. That's a technical term. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing the new stuff that they're coming out with. They're going to be coming out with a really good, or at least that's what they're trying to do, is come up with a very, very good, very, very matte varnish, which I'm looking forward to quite a bit. Their airbrush primers are great. I'm a super big fan of the airbrush primers. That's pretty much all I use now for the most part. Unless I need like a weird color. Like Vallejo still makes a decent amount of like, like bright reds and blues and stuff like that are still technically airbrush surface primers. But if you are looking for black, gray, white, dark like military green, or a color called black brown, right now those are that's them. They're spectacular. Sails of Glory, not Age of Glory. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just a suggestion. I know you don't play Kings of War, but a video on making armies using multiple models on one base could be a blend between diorama painting and Kings of War. I can't think of any other companies that do that in their game besides Kings of War. I think it's a super cool concept. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, Kings of War is a rank and flank style game. So if you think of like, if you've ever watched people play Warhammer Fantasy back before Age of Sigmar, you were moving these rectangles of troops around, and the troops were on little square bases, and you stuck them into these trays and you moved them around. And if you look at games like Song of Ice and Fire from Cool Mini, or if you look at Conquest, Last Argument of Kings from Parabellum, those games are also rank and flank where you're moving rectangles around, but they've still put the models on round bases, unlike the old Warhammer Fantasy where you put them on square bases, but then you couldn't turn them a little bit. Like, if this guy's got a spear, he might be poking the guy in front of him in the back, and so you sort of have to do this weird Tetris thing to get everybody to not poke each other. Whereas if they're on round bases, you can just turn this guy a little bit, and now he's not poking the guy in front of him and back in these kind of rank and flank style games. Kings of War took it another step, and what they did was they said, you don't need to put individual people into these trays, because unlike Kings of War, most games generally, when your unit takes damage, you just start picking off people. You start taking the models away, and when there's only a couple left or whatever, then you know, oh, this force is almost done. In Kings of War, you don't take away models as you take damage. You just have these dice that you sort of put next to the base of your group, and then you basically keep track of how many wounds it took until it decides to break and take off. But the thing that's nice about that is that because you're not having to take models away, they completely, tell you, hey, if you want to, basically make them like little dioramas. So if you see people playing Kings of War, they'll have a rectangle with a bunch of models on it, but maybe like a tree or some bushes, and it's just like, it's all one piece. It's not individual folks. And then the upside, too, is that there's a certain number. Like, if this is supposed to be a unit of 15, you don't have to put 15 models on there. It has to be a certain size, and you have a limit of how many models you are supposed to put on there, or a minimum. But yeah, so you're literally pushing around tiny little dioramas when you do that, which is a fun modeling thing, but I'm still not a big fan of rank and flank games in general. But yeah, it's a cool concept. Avoiding trouble before you start, like yellow over black, which is one of my nightmares when I first started the hobby. Yeah, yellow is a hard one to put, especially over black. Good lord. It took me way too long to realize the importance of proper lighting in the hobby space. It is important, especially as we all get older. Almost none of us are getting younger, so there's that. Cruel Seas also looked interesting to me. That's also Warlord, right? Like World War II battleship type stuff, I think. I could be guessing, but I don't think. I'm kind of interested in that Wings of Glory. Looks like it could be fun with teams and simple to boot, though the pre-painted thing can be hit or miss. Honestly, it used to be called Wings of War a long time ago, but now they've changed it to Wings of Glory, which makes sense. Whatever. But honestly, I've always been real happy with those pre-painted planes. They do, I don't know how they do it, but they're really, I think it's all printed on there, not like, I don't know. It's kind of like when you get a pen and it has someone's logo on it, right? Like, no one hand painted that on there. They use some sort of a process that's like a piece of foam, like super, super fine, like, very, very tiny cellular foam, and it like prints the logo onto it, and then you press that against the golf ball or the pen or whatever. I don't exactly know how the process works, but they do basically the same thing for these airplanes, and they look really, really nice. Like, they're not weathered, but it's kind of like Matchbox cars. They're able to paint on Matchbox cars, and those look pretty good, or Hot Wheels, or whatever you got in your local area. They're kind of like that, but they're not metal or plastic. And I've got a bunch of the old Wings of War planes, and they are always very, very nice. So, don't let that be a concern. Basically, the game is kind of a precursor to Star Wars X-Wing to some degree. Like, Star Wars X-Wing is kind of based off of the overall flight engine for Wings of War. Wings of Glory has probably made some changes. I don't think I've played Wings of Glory specifically. I've played Wings of War. But yeah, no, it's a fun game. Instead of putting down the little disc that says what your maneuver is going to be, you have cards. So when your next turn comes, you have 3 cards. So you're actually making 3 maneuvers. At least that's the way Wings of War used to work. So you'd flip the first one that says, "Oh, you're gonna make a turn like this," and you would actually take the card and you'd put it on the front of the base that the plane was above, and then you would move. Yeah, it was a cool system. If you're into, like, especially like, because they got World War II and World War I. I always preferred the World War I stuff. But if you're into that kind of stuff, it's a good idea. That way of not taking away models is also how the current iteration of Apocalypse works, and I found that very refreshing. Yeah, no, that's true. It's a good point. Yep. Any chance for new Malifaux content? They just came out with a big story expansion. I still don't know anybody around here who plays Malifaux, and I haven't played at all in 3rd edition. I played very little in 2nd edition. When I played more of the previous edition to that. So yeah, I don't know. I did buy some Malifaux models while I was at Gen Con, but I basically bought them for kit bashing or for Rain in Hell. There's a couple of models in there that were like, well, that's a demon, obviously, so I'm going to use that in Rain in Hell. There were 2 of those, and then there was another one that had some these cool Riot Breaker robots that I'm going to, I don't know, kit bash and do fun stuff with. But yeah, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I like the concept of Malifaux a lot, but I just haven't played it in a long time, and so there's that. Kings of War rules play more like old DBM 10mm game or War Master. Don't get me wrong, it's still a good game. Personally, I'm not a fan of the non-I go, you go mechanic. See, I've never played Kings of War, so I don't know. Other than, like, I know that you don't take away the models and all that kind of stuff. I don't know the actual, like, mechanics of the game. That's interesting. Good afternoon from Scotland. Does anyone know of any websites where I can use to identify old metal minis? My friend gave me a load that were her dad's, and I want to find out more about them. Thanks. Maybe go and try to find a subreddit on Reddit. Mini painting might be a good place to look, or I think there's other ones. Like, don't go to, like, unless that they're Games Workshop models, I would tell you not to go to, like, r/Warhammer or anything like that, but, like, r/mini painting might be able to help you out with that stuff. Let's see here. Gaslands Rocks, best new game of the last 10 years. It's a very good game, absolutely. Wings of War, the World War I is quite a lot of fun, I think. Easy to get into, got into it. Got to try it when visiting a friend in England at a wargaming club in Exmouth. Exmouth? I'm probably screwing that one up. But yeah, that's, Wings of War is very cool. Crimson Skies was the best aerial combat game. That game needs to be redone. Like the FASA original version with the metal models, or do you mean the, like, HeroClix kind of version? Because I kind of enjoyed the HeroClix version, and I loved the video game, the PC game. And even the Xbox game was okay, but the PC game was super cool. We played the heck out of that at LAN parties a lot. But yeah, no, it's Crimson Skies. I do wish that they would bring that back as far as something. I know I talked with Jordan Weissman, I forget when. It was a number of years back at Gen Con. I think it was just after they announced the Battletech video game. Not the one made by Harebrained Schemes, not MechWarrior stuff from Microsoft, but the Battletech video game. When they announced that at Gen Con that it was going to be, this was like 2014 maybe, and I'm like, and they announced it, they were going to be doing a Kickstarter. and I just talked to him for like a minute, like he was at the booth or whatever. And I told him how much I enjoyed Crimson Skies, and he, he thanked me for that or whatever. And I'm like, you've been thinking about maybe being able to bring that back as a video game or something? And he's like, basically they got to buy the license back from Microsoft, but he would love to do so. So maybe someday we'll see that. Did I miss a Battletech video from you? You did not. No. That the thumbnail here is a picture that I took in the Catalyst booth. I think. I'm pretty sure it was in the Catalyst booth at Gen Con. So I went into the Catalyst booth at Gen Con, and I was like, I'm going to finally pick up Alpha Strike, the book, because people keep telling me I should try that. And I went in there, and they said they didn't have any. First day, right away, Thursday morning. Nope, don't have any. So they didn't bring it. And I said, why? And they said, because the distributors snapped it all up, was what he literally said. And I don't even know what that means. I mean, I get what he's saying, but okay, cool. So I did buy 2 boxes. I bought like an Inner Sphere Lance and a... whatever the other one was, the Clan Star, I think. So it was like a box with like 4 models in it, and another box maybe with 5 models in it. And I was like, well, maybe I'll make a painting video about how to paint Battletech videos. I don't know, or because I'm just like to the point where I'm like, I'm just tired of not being able to buy the things that I want to get for that game to even try it out. You know what I mean? Like, it's just driving me nuts. I know, I could go buy the PDF and all that stuff. I'm trying to buy the actual book, and you just can't get it. So I bought those two models, those 2 boxes of models. It's like $55. Like one was 25 and one was like 30. I'm like, okay, great. So the next day at Gen Con, this is maybe, I don't know, Friday or Saturday, I forget which, I'm like, I'm going to go back and buy one of each of those again, just so I have extras. So if I'm painting something, if I screw it up real bad or whatever, or if I want to like do all my painting video on one set, but then have a nice version of the second set, then I could do that and whatever. So I went back into their booth the next day, and both of those sets were gone because they hadn't brought enough, and so they were all out. So I'm like, it's just Catalyst. So when I got back, I went to my local game store, and I said, can you order these for me? And the answer was no, they can't. They're not available. Like, we went through both Alliance and ACD. ACD lists them, but says they don't have them in stock, and it doesn't list if or when they will get them in stock. But they are, and so it's just... I don't know. I would like to give them money, but they make it very difficult. So that's been kind of the issues. So yeah, I don't know. That's the thing. One thing I did do is I did reinstall the Harebrained Schemes Battletech video game on my PC. So maybe I'll just have that scratch the itch for now. Yeah, I don't know. It just drives me nuts. Topic, don't be bullied by better painters. I kind of did a thing about that, about how you should not compare yourself to other painters. And I think I did something else about how, like, you shouldn't... I think I've done stuff like that, but maybe not. I'll have to go back and check. Has anyone converted a propane tank into an air tank reservoir for airbrush minis? I've heard about doing that. It sounds slightly dangerous. I could be wrong, but I've heard about doing that. Who even owns the rights to Crimson Skies right now? I swear it's Microsoft, but I don't know that for sure. I've lost so many hours to that Battletech video game. The new Battletech video game is pretty dope. I mean, like, actual Battletech, not the MechWarrior stuff. MechWarrior's fine, but I like the Battletech game because it's kind of turn-based, and it's sort of top-down, even though you can spin the camera around and do all kinds of fun 3D stuff, but you're not in the cockpit. It's a little bit more like Tabletop, because you can see little guys and be like, this guy's going to go over here, and this guy's going to go over there, and that's kind of cool. Catalyst has been having a hard time with stock for years. Yeah, that seems to be the case. Reselling the pack seems to be a great moneymaker on eBay, though. Yeah, that's the thing, because I'm like, okay, so I can't get it from their booth. I can't get it from their website, because I went and looked. Can't get it from distribution through my game store. So I'm like, I should just look on eBay. And then I found that the 2 packs that I have are both selling for about $60 to $80 each right now on eBay. And I'm like, ah. But I thought about it. Where do you get your stuff for games like Zona Alpha? Having trouble finding Modern near future toy soldiers. Probably one of my favorite companies for that right now is, first of all, I mean, if you've either got the ability to do any 3D printing, or you've got a friend who's got like a resin printer, or a friend of a friend who's got a resin printer who will take money for prints or whatever, that's a good place to start. And you can find lots of different kind of modern and near soldier type models, and that's a really great place to start. But where I generally start is a company called Anvil Industry, and they're based out of the UK. So if you're not based out of the UK, I'm not based out of the UK. But last time I bought from them, I think it was at the beginning of the pandemic, possibly even before, but I think it was beginning. So they might be a little bit harder to get shipped now. Not impossible, but you know. But Anvil Industries, they make resin stuff that's really good, and they make tons of like great, like they make sci-fi stuff too, but they also make a lot of like private military contractor looking stuff. Like my cultists that I did for Zona Alpha, they're from that company as well. It's a great company. You get lots of modular abilities. You can buy heads, you can buy torsos, you can buy guns, you can buy the legs, you can buy all that stuff, and then kind of puzzle it all together to make the pieces the way you want to. They're kind of my favorite, but there's plenty of companies out there that are selling like modern-y looking stuff, you know, and that, which works fine. Eureka Miniatures too. If you want stuff made out of metal, Eureka Miniatures is also another good one. Topic: scaled down games from 28 to 10. Ranges changed. That's kind of an interesting concept. Solo games where you battle the dice roll. I want to replay Crescent Hawk's Inception. That was the first Battletech PC game that I ever played. Yeah, I had that back in 1991 when I bought my 386. Just glad I have a ton of old Battletech stuff. It's been next to impossible to find anything around here. It gets snapped up the moment it hits the shelves. Yeah, it's interesting. Solution: trade your Battletech minis for Asmodee. I don't think they're that expensive. I don't think they're, because Asmodee wants like $2 billion, and I don't have any $1 billion. I would understand why Catalyst wouldn't be sending you any copies for review. That would just make their supply issues even worse. Even more people would get interested. See, that's exactly. Well, I'm not asking them to send me anything for review. Don't get me wrong, but you're right. Like, they're probably not reaching out to a lot of companies for that kind of stuff because they don't. You know, they only. Here's the thing. I'm sure they produced a ton of it, but it all went to Kickstarter. So if basically, it seems to me like these days, at least, that Catalyst is a company that if you don't get in on the Kickstarter, you don't get in on it. You know what I mean? And I didn't get in on the Kickstarter because I'm trying to stay away from Kickstarters for the most part these days. But if that's the only way to get their product, well, then I am out of the not. It's not going to happen. So yeah. Let's see here. Oh my goodness, it scrolled again. Battletech has experienced a surge, and both of the starter box sets have sold as many post-FASA box sets combined. Catalyst just can't keep up. See, I don't know. I know one dude who plays it. I thought I didn't know anybody, but I did recently find that there's one guy that comes to my local shop who does play like regular classic Battletech, but I don't know anybody locally at all that plays it. So I keep hearing from people online like, oh, it's super popular and it's getting huge, but I don't know anybody. Now, admittedly, that doesn't mean that it's not the case. I mean, just because you're like, well, I don't know anybody who's ever died from a shark bite, that doesn't mean that shark bites don't happen. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. It's just very strange. I keep hearing that it's happening. Early on, I was like, I think that a bunch of Battletech fans have gotten together on a Discord somewhere and were like, we should just start telling everybody that's very popular, like on YouTube video comments and Reddit and places like that, and then everybody will be like, oh, it's very popular, I should hop on board. And it's what they call a whispering campaign. I don't know if it's a whispering campaign or not. I have a suspicion it's not, since you can't find the stuff, so yeah, it's hard to say. I cannot speak well enough of Anvil Industries. I use their heads for my cultists. I'm thinking about grabbing some of their Greek heads for my Space Marine Minotaurs. Yeah, the Anvil Industries is awesome. I love their stuff. Morning from Oregon. How you doing, Sam? As far as games never dying, I bought Tactics World War II rules by TSR, co-wrote by Gary Gygax in 1977. Still one of my favorite rule sets. I am on my third copy. See, there you go. That's the thing. That's what I love about tabletop games, is that they don't ever die. Whereas I know that there are video games, like sometime this week I think this new video game is going live that I'm interested in. It's an MMO, and I haven't played MMOs in forever. New World? Yeah, it's New World, I think it's called. Or The New World? Anyway. But I know that, in 6, 7, 8 years, or maybe even less, they'll just turn off the servers, and then it's really incredibly hard to play. I know there are some MMOs that are still being kept alive by somebody somehow figuring out how to retrofit the server or whatever, and so that they can run their own server instead of the game company running it. In MMOs at least, but that's rare. So, that's one of the reasons, and I think I've made a video about that too. I seem to recall Anvil Industries has a regiment builder tool that lets you Build-A-Bear your soldiers rather than order whole units of them. It's tremendously helpful. Yes. I didn't use it, but I remember seeing something like that where you can say, I want this and this and this and this, and then they'll be like, cool, here's all the parts you need. And you're like, neat. But I think I went through and picked stuff out separately, which was probably me being stubborn, but yeah. How do you deal with burnout in the hobby? It's not a bad topic, yep. If you folks have got any topic ideas, also if I mentioned this earlier, it makes it a little bit easier if you just put the word topic at the beginning, like in maybe all caps, and then when I'm scrolling through this later, I will be able to see the topics easier. So just FYI. Anvil Industries is great. Bought a bunch of bits for my guard army a few years back. They even drew a cool face on my receipt just because I asked as a joke. Nice. That's always fun. Sell Battletech miniatures for Bitcoin? I don't want any Bitcoin. Tim Elpers says, I play Battletech, but you're in, Germany? I think you're in Germany. I'm not saying, that's very far. Like I said, I know one guy locally that plays. When I got the Battletech starter box, one of the minis was missing a part. They sent me a new one, but it took nearly a year. Apparently due to overall supply problems. I mean, everybody's going to be having more and more supply problems over the next year or two, but it's like they've been preparing for supply problems by having supply problems for quite some time now, which is a bummer. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, they should just start selling STLs. Really, I mean, they should just start selling some STLs so that people can print their own stuff. That would be at least a way to get people to get into the game and probably buy some of the books, maybe as PDFs. Like, if you start producing things that can't have a supply problem, like PDFs and STLs, well, there you go, I think you're going to see more companies doing that. I mean, obviously, that's what One Page Rules is doing. They're producing, they're producing PDF books and STLs models, and they're doing great. Think about how much warehouse space you don't need to have, huh? I thought Battletech was a meme response to GW drama. The game itself doesn't seem fun. I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, then that's the kind of thing that you're into. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. Battletech pump and dump? Battletech is not a cryptocurrency. I heard Rain in Hell is really, really popular. Everyone is talking about it. Don't miss out. See? There you go. That's how that whispering campaign thing works. Regiment Builder is fantastic. You can mix and match up all kinds of creative units. I made a squad of Halo Marine inspired troops a while back and make some great pseudo-historicals. Yeah, like I said, I really like their stuff a lot. Hey, what's up? Great content. Keep going. Greetings from Denver. Well, thank you, Martin. I appreciate it. Hope you're doing well. Some small games do well because certain stores pick it up and it becomes that store's go-to. Lots of random stores fuel games like Bushido, Relic Blade, etc. Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. Like, as we were doing more and more stuff with Game 4, which we're still working on, don't get me wrong. But as we were doing more stuff from Game 4, we would see, and I keep wanting, hopefully someday we'll be able to do this, but I would love to be able to show, and it's really only, well, I mean, I guess it would be for RPGs, and board games are kind of spread all over, right? Because all you need for a board game is one person brings the game, sets it down, takes the stuff out, you play the game, hurrah. With miniatures and with role-playing games, you need a bunch of people to be on the same page. Role-playing games, one person has to run stuff, the other person kind of has to show up, or the other people. With miniatures, in most situations, I need an army, you need an army, we need to work together, and because of that, you get groups that grow. And I would love to make a interactive map that would show, wow, War Machine is really popular in Boise, Idaho, and it's, because obviously, Warhammer stuff will be pretty popular everywhere, but it would be interesting to kind of see the pockets of places. Like, you'll go into a store sometimes and everyone will be playing a game that you're like, I don't know anybody who plays this game. And they're like, oh, that's all we ever play here. It's just tons of... And very frequently, it starts from an instigator, basically, is what... Some people used to call them alpha gamers. I don't like that term particularly because it's just not really the... But an instigator is somebody who's like... is an advocate. Like when I'm telling you that you need to become an advocate for a game, if you're like, I really like Malifaux and I want to get people in my local area playing Malifaux, the first thing you need to do is you need to build 2 Malifaux crews and then go and either convince your friends to play it because they don't have to build or paint or buy anything, or go to the shop and start convincing people there, running demos. Like there's a guy in our local area who has kind of single-handedly kickstarted Star Wars Legion. Like it launched and not very many people were playing it, but he keeps going to the local store and running stuff and teaching people and doing things, and then all of a sudden you get somebody else who shows up with an army, and then somebody else, and then someone brings in some cool terrain, and that's how these things get built. They take time, they take a bit of work, but it's the way that you can take a game that maybe isn't popular and get it actually to be popular in your local neck of the woods. And so that's I think an interesting thing that you do start to see, and I would, like I said, it would be super fun just from a data nerd kind of point of view, just to see like a map to see where the non-GW games, just because they're the most popular, GW that is, it would be interesting to see where the games that aren't the most popular are popular. You know what I mean? So I have been buying and reading avidly the Battletech TRO books for decades. I don't know what a TRO book is. Even when I wasn't playing the game, and buying and painting the models. Patiently biding my time. Patiently biding my time. Nice. I started checking out Foxhole based on yesterday's stream. No, I need to check out New World. Or now I need to check out... Yeah, Foxhole, I was watching a guy play Foxhole on Twitch. And it's this crazy, like, little... like, sort of top-down video game, and it's like a war game. And at first I was like, it's like World War II or something. And I was looking at it closer, like, is it World War I? Because there's trenches. And then I look at it and I'm like, that's not... It's like slightly cartoonish. And it's not like Axis versus Allies or this versus... It's the Colonials versus the Wardens. And it's just all made up crazy stuff. But it's this sort of top-down... It's been out for years, as it turns out. It's on Steam, and it's like, I don't know, like currently I think it's on sale for like $15. And it's just this huge, massively multiplayer kind of battle that goes on. It's really kind of interesting. So, I don't know. I've thought about picking it up, but I have not pulled the trigger yet. New World, that I did pre-buy, because then you could get into the closed beta, I don't know, a couple months back, sometime back in late July or early August. But yeah, so New World is... something that I hope to be doing a little bit of playing with here and there. We'll see. I don't know. It was fun when I played the closed beta. It's like it's an MMO, but like unlike a lot of MMOs where you just click on the monster and then your person attacks the monster and then the monster dies. It's a little bit more video gamey. Like you have to, if you want to hit them, you actually have to hit them with the sword. You have to swing and not miss. It's not like a dice roll. Oh, you missed. It's like, if I shoot a spell at the monster, if I miss because the cursor wasn't on him, the crosshairs, and it goes past the monster's head, then he doesn't take any damage. On the other hand, if I'm really good at blocking, I can fight against monsters that are tougher or higher than my level because I learn their patterns and I can block their attacks a lot better. And then, and so it's a little bit more actual skill-based as opposed to just like click this button, click this button, click this button, and repeat. You know what I mean? So anyway, we'll see how it goes. Plus, it's got some really interesting art, and the graphics are really good. Like, when you're walking through the woods, it feels very woodsy. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And it comes out only a couple days after the launch of the expansion, so then I won't have to work on the expansion anymore, and I'll have some free time, which will be nice. Advocate equals pusher. Sort of. A little bit. I mean, it's, I'm not going to lie. A game champion, another term for the advocate or whatever. Hear about it all over on the Game 4 podcast this week. Yes, that's true. We did talk about game champions this week. That's a good point. I'm perfectly happy playing what most people play here. I'm sure I'll take a weekend to run people of Rain and Hell at some point, but people have models for that. No further investment needed. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing. I think that there's a lot of people in the industry, take that back, not the industry, the community. There's a lot of people in the community who believe that you can only play one game. And I don't hold to that at all. That maybe there's a video topic right there. Well, I think I actually made that video topic now. I come to think of it. Anyway, I like to play a lot of different games, and like if you want to get good, competitive, tournament winning, then you probably focus on a game because you're going to put all your effort into winning that game and being very competitive. But if you are like just trying to have fun and you like painting a lot of different types of models, or you like using the same models repeatedly in a couple of different types of games, I think playing a bunch of different types of games is a good idea. Technical Readout, TRO. Oh yeah, are those the longer books that are like more what do you call it? Landscape? Yeah, I remember back when I played regular Battletech back in like middle school, I had the 3025 and maybe the 3050, I guess, TRO, if that's what you're... I'm thinking... Isn't that a temporary restraining order? Isn't that what that is? Anyway. I got my local shop to start carrying Battletech, but he let the stock run out to make room for Critical Role minis. I mean, stuff that sells is what they're going to do, generally. Yeah, Critical Role minis, I think, are selling very well. People like that stuff. Thanks for your videos. You've inspired me to start painting minis. Now I'm waiting for my Octarius box to arrive. Well, good to hear. Absolutely. Kickstarter after campaign inflation. I hate how much Kickstarter prices blow up on secondhand markets. I understand paying more, but people often ask double and triple price. Oh, yeah. Marvel Crisis Protocol and Moonstone are the big little games at our local store. Even Marvel demo game, every Marvel demo game I've took people through has resulted in them going right over and laying down cash. Well, that's pretty cool. I don't know Moonstone. I should look into that. But Marvel Crisis Protocol, I mean, that's not exactly a little game in comparison to Games Workshop, sure. But yeah, it's it's got Disney behind it, so that's a thing. But yeah, I really need to work on those models. Have you looked at Ironwind medals for Battletech? Yeah, I have. I live in a large city, LA, where pretty much every game is played somewhere. It would be nice to be able to do a search and or see a heat map of niche games. Yeah, I mean, that's part of what Game 4 is designed for. Not so much the initial heat map thing, but part of what Game 4 was designed for was so that you could type in your local area saying, I'm looking to play this, this, and this. And you make almost like a little... what do you used to call them? Classified ad. You know what I mean? Like in the paper, you say, I'm looking for this, and then people can scroll through those looking for players sections and find somebody, and they can send you a message in the app. You're not giving them your phone number. You're not giving them your email address. They can send you a message, and then you can look at their profile, and you can chat back and forth for a while, and then be like, let's get together at our local shop, which is a public place, and then we'll hang out and maybe play a game, and then things will happen. And so we're working on bringing that back. We're redoing the main interface and all that kind of stuff, but the functionality of the database is still pretty much the same. But it's also still in a lot of places in the world, because it's also a global app, still not particularly safe to be going to events yet. So we're taking our time a little bit and keeping an eye on the prevailing issues. So yeah, it will come back. It's just coming back a little bit slower than anybody wants, frankly, specifically us. Yeah. Game 4 podcast. Yes, there's a Game 4 podcast. We've done 61 episodes now. If you type in Game 4 podcast into whatever podcast doohickey you like, you'll probably find it. We do it every 2 weeks. It's me and Game 4 Matt, who is different than moderator Matt. Yeah. I really hope Ironwind Metals jumps on CEOcast. Yeah, me too. I hate built so many of their battle mechs. Yeah, that's one of the things, is I don't like building metal mechs. They are troublesome. Playing only one game would help down on the hobby hoarding. You'd think so. And you'd be right in some situations. If you only play just sci-fi stuff, then you only need sci-fi terrain. You don't need sci-fi and fantasy terrain, or sci-fi and modern terrain, or whatever. That's true in some situations. And you only need one set of models. But if you play model-agnostic games, a lot of times models can double dip or triple dip into different types of games as well. So yeah, there's that. Oh, hey, speaking of moderator Matt, I'm just going to do a thing here. Not that, and just do that. And I think that should do the job. What's a good skirmish post-apocalyptic game? Mutants and Death Ray Guns from Ganesh Games. Ganesha? Yeah, Mutants and Death Ray Guns is a really nice, kind of simple, fun post-apocalyptic game. I'd tell you, if you can find it, Wreckage, which is WRECK Age, Wreckage. Though it's probably hard to find now because they kind of stopped doing their thing. So yeah, but that's a couple that I can think off the top of my head. I know there's more, but those are the only two I can think off the top of my head. Let's see here. Spam alert. Yep. Finished my 2 mechs. All I need now is the clear coat. Beware the Hunchback 2C Double Ultra AC20. You will feel much pain. There you go. Oh, this is not a test. I forgot about this is not a test. Yep, that one's also post-apocalyptic, right? Kind of along the lines of like a Fallout-style game. Have you played Fallout Wasteland? That's right. Fallout Wasteland Warfare is another one. That one is a little bit more kind of all-inclusive in that they make the models and then they make the game and all that kind of stuff. I have messed around with it. I did a demo of Fallout Wasteland Warfare, and I've read the instructions because I have a copy of it, but I have not particularly... I don't know. There's something about skirmish games that use a lot of like cards and tokens and extra stuff to make them look almost a little bit more towards board gamey that just make me a little bit less interested. It's probably a very good gateway game. I think the skirmish games that have a lot of board gamey kind of feel to it with all the little stat cards and the tokens and all that kind of stuff, I think those can be good for people if you're trying to like, hey, this is, if you like board games, this is like a board game, but it's got some other things going on there. But for me personally, when I want to play a game, I kind of like games that are just basically like, here's a book, maybe you have some tokens just because it makes things useful, but we don't supply them, you just use whatever you're going to use. And I don't know, I'm not a big fan of cards. It's weird. I like in Malifaux, the card mechanic for instead of using it instead of dice, I dig that a lot. And I actually don't even hate like the cards that they make that go with the decks. It's just that you constantly have to make new cards every time you make a new system or update the game or you make an FAQ change or whatever. And it seems like a good excuse to sell cards, and I'm just not sure about that. Like, I'm not against card games. I like card games, but I don't know if I need too many cards in my miniatures. Personal preference. Have you tried any of the new bookshelf games that GW has at Barnes & Noble, like Fireteam? I have not tried Fireteam, but I have a copy of it. But I've not had the chance to take a look through it, really. A friend of mine is on a big screw GW kick and is trying to get our play group into Battletech. Is it any good? It's a lot of bookkeeping. There's a lot of... you ever take any tests in college where you have to fill out those little circles? That skill will come back to help or haunt you, depending on what your thoughts are about that. I find that classic Battletech is too much bookkeeping. It's weird too, because whenever I see people playing classic Battletech, they're rarely ever playing with like a lance versus a lance. It always seems like it's like, I've got 28 models that I have to keep track of, and you've got 32 or whatever, and you're just like, you guys are going to be here till next week Thursday. And that's not what I'm interested in these days. But, there are still people out there who are plenty interested in that, and so that's cool that they make that. But if you're not into tracking armor, internal damage, heat, ammo, all that stuff, you may not be interested in. Watch some battle reports. Ash Barker does a decent amount of battle reports for... Guerrilla Miniature Games, look that up on YouTube. He does a decent amount of battle reports for Battletech, but there are other folks out there as well, I'm pretty sure. I would buy a copy of the old TSR game Gamma World, kind of like D&D in a post-apocalyptic world. There was a re-release of that in the 2010s, I think, but you were buying it like... It was still an RPG, but it came in a box. It wasn't just like a book. It was like a box, and they had expansions, and there were like you didn't use miniatures, but you did have like tokens. It was kind of like, I felt like it was almost like D&D 4th edition, but with a Gamma World skin on it. You can probably still find that around. You might have to look on eBay, but yeah. That stuff, I got a friend who's big into that. Is there a low fantasy skirmish game? I'm not sure if I know what low fantasy is. I mean, Turnip 28 might be something you're looking for. Just do a Google search on Turnip 28, all one word. You might find some stuff. The guy who did Relic Blade, his name is Sean Sutter. He did a game recently called Sludge, which is kind of like a low fantasy, but it is, I think, still. I feel like it's still rank and flank or something like that. I watched a bit of a battle report, I think, again on Ash's channel to find out more about it, but I was really sleepy and I think I might have fallen asleep. It was late. Battletech Scantron Wars. There you go. Good morning from Boston. Did we what Adam is doing next? I mean, I'm just asking for topic ideas. If you got a topic idea and things that, new videos that I could make, feel free to put the word topic at the beginning of them, preferably in all caps, and then that way when I go back and scan through these later, I'll be able to figure out which ones are topic ideas and things like that. Let's see here. Can't deal with tons of tokens. They either get in the way or I forget to move them with the mini. Yeah, no, sometimes too many tokens can be a problem. Like with Rain in Hell, we didn't really go tons of tokens at all. What we did was when you activate your demon, it's smart to take the D12 and put it next to the demon after the activation is done, so you know I already activated this guy. So you use a D12 for each activation and stuff like that. So that was kind of the token in that situation. Like, I'm a big fan, especially in skirmish games, because my memory is garbage. I'm a big fan of putting some sort of little gem, little button, something next to models to know which ones I already activated. If I can only activate them once per turn, it makes a lot of sense for me. But I don't need like 6 different condition tokens on a model. I don't need that many conditions on a model. I think that's maybe, I don't know. It's not my idea of necessarily great game design sometimes. Low fantasy, not much magic. Ah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I would look into I would look into. Yeah, Turn Up 28 is not a bad idea. Devin Jones says the Game of Thrones is low fantasy. Yeah, I could see that, sure, because like there is a little bit of magic, but not too much. Yep, okay. I'm a long-time Battletech player, but honestly, I think the rules for Bolt Action or Conflict 47 would be better for GW players looking to expand as the mechanics are more familiar. That's true. I mean, really, Bolt Action is nearly 5th edition of 40K. It's very similar, to be honest with you, which I like. It's fine. I have no problem with it, because they also fix some things and stuff like that, so there's that. Absolutely. New to Battletech, Tabletop, but veteran mech warrior. I agree the classic Battletech system feels so much bookkeeping. Whenever I recommend to streamline, I get pushback. Seems like the oldies are... the oldies enjoy torture. Yeah, I mean, so they made a different version of the game called Alpha Strike, which is supposed to like dial back on the bookkeeping and all that stuff. But I gotta be honest, I have looked at Alpha Strike. Like I did flip through the book someplace. Several years ago, I flipped through the book and looked at and checked it out, and I was like, this is the streamlined version, but there still seems like there's a lot of stuff going on there. Hey, Nick is back. and also my wife. They were doing a gig, so yes. Cav Strike Ops is made by Talon Games, if anyone is interested. I remember Cav vaguely. Box miniature games that have a fixed play space, Monster Apocalypse, Riot Quest, etc. Interesting. They're kind of almost like that's almost like a gateway game in some situations. I could see that. Not sure if I've asked before, but do you know a good rule set for sword fight dueling in miniatures? I want to use my Highlander minis for a game that's actually fun. I don't. Like actual sword fighting, like where you have like different types of attacks and defenses and parries and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't actually know anything like that. It's not a bad idea. I was actually wondering, were you thinking of doing anything with Gates of Antares? I've watched a few battle reports. It seems similar to Bolt Action. I do think it is similar to Bolt Action, which makes sense with the game creators. Totally makes sense. I've never particularly dug the miniatures. I gotta be honest. I've looked at the miniatures before and always gone, it's just like not an aesthetic style that I'm into, and I don't know why. But I should maybe take a look at it again. I still want an isometric grid-based skirmish game like Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics. Would probably have to figure out a modular system for that. Yeah, there you go. Let's see. If you played 2nd edition 40K, Battletech has about the same amount of modifiers. There you go. One day someone will take their gaffer's tape off of poor Nick's mouth and we'll hear his side of things. That's actually like a rubber pad that's like built into the case. I don't know what it's for. It was there before the eyes were. VJ Morph sent the eyes, but I don't know what is that rubber pad for? Do you know?
Nothing.
It's not for It's for nothing.
It's for logo, I guess.
It's got the logo on it, so there you go. What is the blue thing with the face painted behind you? That is my wife's cello case, and his name is Nick Ramondo. Try On Guard for swashbuckling sword fighting action. It's an Osprey title. See, that's an Osprey title I haven't heard of, so maybe that's the one to take a look at there, VJ Morph. Any chance you and Vince one day make a Rain in Hell themed mini agnostic board game a la Blackstone Fortress or Cursed City? A lot more there than a rule set, so maybe beyond your scope. Probably beyond our scope. Though there's a company called Game Crafter, or The Game Crafter, one of the two. And they're based out of Madison, Wisconsin, so they're not crazy far away from us. And they are like print-on-demand board games. So there's a potentiality there. I don't know if the potentiality is a word, but let's say it is. There's a potential there that maybe, potentially, we could. But the downside to Game Crafter stuff is it's not cheap. Because, print-on-demand, a game board and stuff like that, is not cheap. So it would not be a cheap thing. One of the reasons that we really like this setup for the book... Whoops. And that we went with... Anyway. And the reason that we went with the black and white insides, there's a color cover and all that stuff, but it's all black and white insides and everything like that. And, the reason we went with this and soft cover as opposed to hard cover is because it made a $15 book. You know what I mean? It made a book that was reasonably priced for people, but yet we still made a bit of profit off of, and so that was cool. Game Crafter is really cool for when you need to make kind of one-off board game things and stuff like that. And there have been some games that have showed up on Game Crafter that eventually got picked up by big league companies and stuff like that and turned into regular games. But it is a little it's not super reasonable price wise. So I don't know that we would go down that road. But maybe it's potential. Topic: why Kickstarters could be or not for you. Oh yeah, that's not a bad idea either. Yeah. Let's see here. I have yet to see Gates of Antares anywhere in the shops. It's not well distributed here in North America. Yeah, the only place I've ever seen it is Adepticon, I'll be honest with you. In the Warlord Games booth. Have I seen it at Gen Con in the Warlord Games booth? I don't remember. I know Warlord Games was there, but I don't know that I don't think I saw it in the booth, but I could be wrong. Let's see here. I ran Classic Battletech at conventions all the time, but changed to running Alpha Strike because I can accommodate more players and the game doesn't take all day to play. There are trade-offs. Sure, I get that. Just recently got an airbrush. Any advice for correcting mistakes from overspray? And any suggestion for what masking material I should use? Honestly, it depends on what kind of mask you're looking for. If you're looking for sharp lines, then I don't have a lot of answers because I'm not generally doing that. If you're looking for, I just don't want to get paint on this one part or something like that, you go to your dollar store or whatever and get some Silly Putty. Silly Putty is a great masking material for airbrushing. It works really, really well. I use it quite a bit. Adam, I sure enjoy your shows. You are very informative and kind. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Jeff. Thank you very much. I love the PC. I love the BattleTech PC game because the computer does all the bookkeeping for you. Yes, that's very important. I think that I can't tell you how many times I've played a demo of a game someplace, and it's more in the olden days. There was a game that I loved, and I still have a fond place in my heart for it. It was called Silent Death. And it was a spaceship combat game, more like a fighter-sized spaceship combat game, played on a hex grid, Lots of little filling in little boxes and bookkeeping and stuff like that. Played it back in the 90s. Used to run demos of it at Gen Con, actually, with a group out of Ottawa called the Ottawa Red Shirts. And it was... I do remember one time, like, you know, sitting there, like, in a 4-hour game, and I'm just thinking to myself, this would have been a lot quicker if it would have been a video game. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you're taking, like, so much data that if a computer could, like, you know, really condense down into making something go. Like, that's kind of the issue that I have sometimes with some games these days in tabletop games. Tabletop games, in my mind, should be a lot more streamlined because it should be more about the story and maybe the strategy and not the simulation. And I know I made a video about this. Computers are way better at simulation than tabletop games are. So tabletop games, I think, have to lean into their strengths in that situation. I mean, it's why Reign in Hell's got 3 stats for each model. You've got life, you've got movement, and you've got combat, and that's it. We didn't need to go in there and put 28 different stats in there for each model because it just doesn't make a lot of sense. If you want to get super, super, super crunchy and have to do a lot of bookkeeping, then it's probably better to do it on the PC or console or whatever. But yeah, no, I agree. I bought the Reign in Hell PDF. I love it. If I can only convince my local shop to play it. Nice. Thank you for buying the thing there. 4 years ago, I bought Battletech box and was really into it. Back to Kickstarter. Any of my friends wasn't into it. They started 40K with a friend. Just got my Kickstarter stuff, but I forgot all the rules. Yeah, that's... I have a Kickstarter that's still going to be showing up eventually. I shared pictures of it on my Instagram because they had models finally at Gen Con. The most recent... Well, not the most recent, but the second most recent Kickstarter that I did was 2019, I think. And it was the Car Wars 6th edition Kickstarter. The product is now in the country, but we still don't exactly know when it's actually going to get into our hands. So we'll see. That's a game that used to also have an entire 8.5 by 11 sheet that you used to keep track of your cars on and all that kind of stuff. And they've streamlined that game now to, frankly, it reminds me a good deal of actually Star Wars X-Wing. Like, you now have, like, you know, it's a different game. It's still about cars shooting each other and rolling over and dropping, you know, landmines and stuff like that. But it's very different as far as the way it's run and everything like that. And I think it will potentially work with a wider audience because of that. So that's cool. That being said, I still think that maybe Gaslands is a touch better game, but we'll see. I've only done demos of Car Wars a couple of times, and I would like to see the final rules. I was demoing beta rules back in 2019. Which is more bookkeeping, Battletech or Starfleet Battles? I think Starfleet Battles. I haven't played Starfleet Battles in forever, though. But, like, Car Wars used to have 10 movement, like, phases. Starfleet Battles, when I played it, I believe had 28 movement phases, and I think it had originally started in previous versions with 32. I may be making those numbers up, but I don't know that I am. It was... I remember playing Car Wars, my friends like, hey, this is Starfleet Battles. It's kind of like Star Trek and everything like that, but somehow they skirt around the... Anyway, but yeah, it's basically like Star Trek without saying it's Star Trek. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And then he's like, yeah, you know how you get like 10 movement segments in Car Wars? And I was like, yeah. He's like, well, there's 28 in Starfleet Battles, and it used to be 32. And I'm like... And so basically the concept is that, like, depending on the speed you're moving in Car Wars, if you're moving at 10 miles an hour, you may only move on phase 1. If you're moving 20 miles an hour, you're going to maybe move on 2 phases, or 1 phase and a half phase. And then that's kind of, you know, so it was depending on how fast you were going, depended on what phases you moved on in a turn. And it's kind of an older way of doing things. They kind of don't do it that way so much anymore. The new game does not do that. Silent Death by Donald something? Silent Death, it was by a bunch of folks. Don Dennis, I know, was an editor on one. He's a guy that I still kind of know, mostly through Twitter these days, but we used to kind of hang out at shows and stuff. But yeah, Silent Death was made by a company called Iron Crown Enterprises, so you should still be able to find Silent Death stuff out there from ICE. Silent Death is like 30 years old, yeah, because I'm not young, as it turns out. Never played it, sadly. My good friend, Peter, runs it at because he and I used to do demos before with the Ottawa Red Shirts folks, and yeah, he's run it at Tabletop Minions Expo the last several years. Well, obviously not 2020 or 2021, but 2019, 2018, 2017, he ran. It's a style of game. The scenario is called Fly Till You Die, and it's designed for playing at conventions because you can kind of hop in at any time or hop out at any time. So the game can keep running, and people can come in and say, "Hey, this is interesting. What is it?" And you can be like, "Here's a ship. Here's how you play real quick," and start shooting. So yeah, if any of you have been to Tabletop Minions Expo, you very possibly maybe played Silent Death, or at least watched it a little bit. I remember playing Auto Duel on my C64 back in the day. Nice. What's your feeling on app-assisted tabletop games? What's a way to streamline the bookkeeping without losing the complexity? Yeah, I mean, I played a decent amount of Golem Arcana. Golem Arcana was cool. The issue is that when they decided they weren't going to support it anymore, it became very difficult to play. That was a game that really heavily depended upon the app. I think a game that the app assists on is probably better long term than a game that requires an app, definitely. So yeah, because that's the thing, is that basically you couldn't get updates anymore for Golem Arcana, and then now all the stuff is sort of useless. Because technically, if you can find the rule book, you can sort of figure out how to play, but it really based itself off the app for like how you did things. So having a game that gets help from the app as opposed to the app runs the game, I think is a better plan. It was very interesting because the idea was that if you were playing against a friend who didn't live near you, the two of you could set up your stuff and then have the app kind of in between, and then they could be playing at their house and you're playing at your house, and then you see what they're doing, and then it was super cool. And also the other thing that was neat about it was like, because they were getting all this data, they were able to pull in this model is undercosted because we've got all this data that shows us from all the people who play that it wins more than it loses or whatever, and all that kind of stuff. So they had great concepts in it. They were pre-painted minis, which was also cool, but they weren't that great paints. But whatever, I think they were better than HeroClix. But I don't know. I really liked Golem Arcana, and then they eventually were like, "Yeah, we're not going to support it anymore." And then the app got kind of shut down, and then so that's a bummer. Do you think video game versions of tabletop games will take over? It does sound financially sound on a company standpoint. Just sell your IP rights to developers. I don't know that take over is the case. No, I think that, obviously Games Workshop produces or licenses out. There's tons and tons and tons of video games based off their stuff, but they're still also pushing real hard onto, making all these other things. I will tell you right now, I'm astounded by the number of people that I talk to when I go to like a convention who walk up and say, "Hi, I really like your channel," and all that kind of stuff. And they tell me that they got into Warhammer 40,000 from Dawn of War, the PC game. Like, Dawn of War is great, don't get me wrong. I'm astounded when a person who plays video games says, "You know what, this video game is really cool. I would like to buy a bunch of tiny plastic pieces, glue them all together, sand them, prime them, paint them, and then eventually go to tournaments in Schaumburg, Illinois." Like that. Like, if a person is like, "Oh, I started getting into it because of the video game," sure. But these are people who are at a tournament, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I got into 40K because of this video game." I'm astounded by that. It just doesn't seem like it would track, but it certainly does, at least somewhat. So that's, I don't think it's necessarily the main vector that gets people into 40K, certainly, but it has a surprising effect, and also it's a game that people are buying and playing and whatever. So you're getting, again, from Games Workshop's point of view, you're double dipping because they're getting the licensing for having this company make it, and then also it eventually sends people over to actually buy some of their miniatures in some situations, which is interesting. Original Car Wars was like being able to figure out scale miles per hour and trying to play a strategic war game, a game that you had to do a lot of math quickly in your head and think multiple steps ahead like chess. Oh yeah, there was definitely, because I used to play Original Car Wars. We played like every Friday night in college, not the entirety of my college, but a lot in college. We played Friday night Car Wars, and there were a lot of times when you were like, "I need to make this turn, but I'm going to lose control, and I'm going to very possibly do a death roll and smash into this thing and T-bone myself upside down," and all these different things. Like, it was, there was a lot of complexity, but it just should have been, they didn't have the ability at that time really, but that game would have been a video game. Would have made a lot more sense, But yeah. Another airplane game to look at is called Check Your Six. Interesting. VJ Morph says, yes, Dave and I played Silent Death. I was so hungover. Yes, well, I get that. There are a few web apps that make Kingdom Death Monster bookkeeping super easy and made the settlement phases much quicker and more fun. See, that's the kind of thing I think is important. Like, we're working with a company at my day job. We're working with a company to do a companion app for a board game that they're producing, and we're looking to do more of that because it's just fun work anyway. But it's also like there's a lot of board games that are like you could like basically it's replacing a timer for the game because the game requires a timer, and then at the end, then you just click a couple of things and then it does all the math for you and figures out the points. So instead of you having to read the instructions, keep a timer on your watch or whatever, and it makes things easier. But the game can still be played without it. I think that those are the key apps, frankly. I got my kids into Battletech from the Xbox MechWarrior video game. Nice. I mean, there is transfer, certainly. You can always rely on nerds to ruin a great game. See how they have to change a bunch of Marvel stuff. They didn't catch things in playtesting because they play for fun, not for nerd status. I mean, GW's had that same issue for years. There's been a lot of things that GW has to change because the competitive players are like, well, if you do this, this, and this, and this, and then all of a sudden, boom, you got this nigh unbeatable combo. And the playtesters back in the day at Games Workshop were like, they don't play that way. You know what I mean? So they don't even realize that you could do that because they don't play that way. They don't play competitively. Now, at least, Games Workshop does have outside playtesters, and a lot of them are competitive players. So, in theory, they're going to hopefully be better about, catching some of those things that, again, for the most part, mainly just the competitive people care about. People who are just playing for fun are playing for fun, and they're like, well, whatever. But yeah. Video games lack the creative aspect the tabletop hobby provides. I don't disagree. Crafting and such is such an aspect that I will love as long as I live, and I have something to show for the time spent. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm a big fan of sitting down and playing, or sitting down and painting for 3 hours and having stuff to show for it versus sitting down and playing a video game for 3 hours and having kind of frankly nothing to show for it. That being said, it's still enjoyable to play a video game from time to time. Sometimes you're just in that mood, And if a person only plays video games and they don't play tabletop games, that's, again, a choice. There's nothing wrong with it. My personal preference, though, is I'll get into sometimes situations where I play video games a little bit more than I do whatever regular stuff. But I always come back to the regular stuff, especially now because I've got like I'm doing it on Twitch, as it turns out, like every Monday night at 7 p.m. Central and every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Central. So at least I'm in the weeks where I fall into a hole and I maybe do more video gaming than usual. At least I'm painting 6 hours a week. You know what I got? I got that going for me, which is nice. But generally, I do. When I do video games, very frequently I do them after I get done painting for the evening because my eyes start to. I look over the top of my glasses like this, and then I give myself an ice cream headache, and it's not good. So there's that. We were playing a game called 5 Minute Dungeon at one point. It was a lot of fun, and it had a competition app to keep track of the time, and you could totally play without it, but it did help a lot. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Those types of apps are super cool. I played Dawn of War 2 in high school, then visited our GW shop for the first time after. See, that'll get you. Sometimes that'll get you. Played my first game of Kill Team last week. So far, having fun with my first tabletop game. Absolutely, total fan. Yeah, I mean, I've been watching Tycho from Penny Arcade, Tycho and Kiko, on their Twitch channel. They've been playing Kill Team. They played with the starter box for a bit, the Krieg and the Orcs, and then recently it was Thousand Suns versus something. So yeah, they've been getting into that too, and I think that's very cool. For me, especially in regard to Warhammer 40,000, video games are a great way to stay engaged with that universe while still having the hobby for my more creative side. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are folks out there who play Warhammer video games, listen to Warhammer lore, paint Warhammer models, but don't actually play. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what's really great about the hobby, is that it has so many different factions to it, and I really dig that. Like, there are probably people out there who read the lore about video games but don't actually play the video games, but I don't know if there's a lot of them. You know, maybe there are. But I think that you do see people... The tabletop hobby can be vast enough that you can be kind of like hovering around it in secondary and tertiary ways, yet not actually like playing the game, and that's totally fine. I got no problem with it personally, so you keep doing you, absolutely. Interested in the companion app for the new Hero Quest set and how it will work. Supposedly you'll be able to handle solo play to run the evil warlock so people can play without running it. See, that's also a nice extra use, too, for companion app type things, too. If you need to have solo play, then rather than having to write an AI that your person has to go through, which is what we're doing for the Rain and Hell expansion, you can literally just have a real AI that does a thing, and then, well, not real AI, you know, but a computer-controlled sort of thing that does that sort of stuff. Listing people who do everything but play. Yeah, and it's very cool. All right, it's 11 o'clock on my clock here, and so I'm going to head out. But you folks, thanks for the topic ideas. I appreciate it. I'm going to go through and, what do you call it? I'm going to go through and read them. I run the video like at like 2 times speed and then like turn the volume down and just sort of watch the stuff scroll by and then copy and paste and pause. And anyway, I'll be doing that sometime, I don't know, this upcoming week, and then I'll have myself a nice extra list, and hopefully I can make some videos about this stuff. I always appreciate, not only because it gives me extra ideas, but it also lets me know kind of things that you folks are thinking about for, you know, topic ideas and things like that. And it's like almost like a survey, and now I can kind of get the lay of like at least what the audience is thinking and that kind of stuff. So that's good to do, and I appreciate it. So again, like I said, right now the plan is that on Monday, tomorrow, the release of the Oculus Spear, which is the expansion for tabletop or for Rain and Hell, it's going to come out tomorrow on wargamevault.com, and we'll be posting about it and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, it'll be pay what you want, so that'll be also nice. You can get it for free, or you can give us some money if you want to, or you know, however you want to do it. It'll be PDF only, won't be a print version, but it's short, so yeah, it's an add-on. Gives you solo and co-op play rules for Rain and Hell. So that'll be coming tomorrow, God willing, and the creek don't rise. So yeah, there you go. I hope you have a good day, and hopefully we'll see you on Twitch. Hopefully we'll see you another 2 weeks, and thanks for watching.